My husband said I was overreacting. Then his ex walked into my birthday dinner, and the room felt like it shrank to the size of a pinhead. I was turning 32, and I'd spent weeks planning this night at La Bella Vita, a cozy Italian spot in downtown Seattle where the tiramisu is worth the hour-long wait. The guest list was small but deliberate. My best friend Tara, her husband Mike, my brother Ethan, and of course, my husband, David. I wanted intimate, warm, no drama. Apparently, the universe had other plans. David and I had been married for 3 years, together for 5. He's a software engineer, the kind of guy who solves problems with code but clams up when emotions get messy. I'm a graphic designer, freelance, which means I pour my heart into visuals and overthink everything else. Our marriage was solid, or so I thought, but lately, I'd noticed him being distant. He'd stay late at work, claim he was crushing bugs in some app, but his phone was always face down, and he'd jump if I touched it. I tried asking about it a week before my birthday, and he brushed it off. "You're overreacting." "Lauren," he said, his voice sharp enough to sting. "Work's just intense." I let it go, but the word overreacting lodged in my chest like a splinter. The night of my birthday, I was determined to shake off the unease. I wore my favorite emerald green dress, the one David always said made my eyes pop. Tara and Mike arrived first, arms loaded with a bottle of Chianti and a card that made me laugh out loud. Ethan showed up next, his usual scruffy self, joking about how he'd almost bought me a yacht. David was late, which wasn't unusual, but when he walked in, he looked distracted, his tie loosened like he'd been tugging at it. "Sorry, babe," he muttered, kissing my cheek. "Traffic." I smiled, but that splinter in my chest twisted. Dinner started off fine. The restaurant hummed with clinking glasses and soft jazz. Tara was telling a story about her disastrous attempt at baking sourdough, and Ethan was teasing her mercilessly. I was laughing, sipping wine, feeling like maybe I was overreacting, until the door chimed, and I glanced up. There she was, Jessica, David's ex-girlfriend, striding in like she owned the place. Her red hair was impossible to miss, cascading over a black dress that hugged her like it was custom-made. She wasn't alone. A tall guy in a blazer was with her, but my eyes locked on her. My stomach dropped. Jessica and David dated for 4 years before we met. He'd described her as intense and hard to pin down, which I took as code for train wreck. They'd broken up because she wanted to move to New York for her career, and he didn't. End of story. Or so he'd said. I'd never met her, but I'd seen her Instagram, public, polished, full of artsy photos and cryptic captions. She was a curator at some gallery now, back in Seattle after a stint in Manhattan. I didn't know she was back until Tara mentioned it casually a month ago, and when I asked David about it, he shrugged. "Good for her," he'd said, eyes on his laptop, another splinter. Now, here she was, at my birthday dinner, in my restaurant. I looked at David, expecting him to be as shocked as I was, but he was staring at his plate, fork frozen mid-bite. "David," I whispered, leaning closer. "Did you know she'd be here?" His eyes flicked up, and for a split second, I saw something. Guilt? Panic? "No," he said quickly. "It's a coincidence." But his voice was too tight, and he didn't look at her, not once. Tara noticed too. She raised an eyebrow at me, her lips pursed like she was holding back a question. Ethan, oblivious, was still rambling about some hiking trail. Mike, ever the peacemaker, tried to steer the conversation back to the food. "This carbonara's unreal," he said, a bit too loudly. I nodded, but my appetite was gone. Jessica and her date were seated 2 tables away, close enough that I could hear her laugh, a sharp, confident sound that made my skin crawl. Every time she spoke, David's shoulders tensed, like he was bracing for impact. I tried to focus on my friends, on the candles flickering on the table, on the fact that this was my night, but my mind was spiraling. Why was she here? La Bella Vita wasn't some random chain. It was a gem, booked weeks in advance. Had David mentioned my plans to her? Had they been talking? The thought made my throat tighten. I glanced at him again, and this time, he was looking at her, just for a second. But it was enough. His face wasn't angry or surprised. It was soft, like he was remembering something. "Lauren, you okay?" Tara's voice cut through my haze. She was staring at me, her brown eyes sharp with concern. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just warm in here." It was a weak lie, and she knew it. David reached for my hand under the table, but his palm was clammy, and I pulled away without thinking. He didn't try again. The rest of dinner was a blur. Jessica didn't approach us, thank God, but her presence was like a spotlight I couldn't escape. Every laugh, every gesture, she was performing, and I was the unwilling audience. When the waiter brought out my birthday cake, a chocolate hazelnut masterpiece I'd been excited about all week, I could barely taste it. Ethan led a loud, off-key rendition of Happy Birthday, and I smiled for the photos. But my eyes kept drifting to David. He was trying to act normal, joking with Mike, but his laugh sounded hollow. As we left the restaurant, I glanced back. Jessica was still there, leaning close to her date, her hand on his arm. She didn't look at us, but I felt her eyes anyway. In the car, David was quiet, gripping the steering wheel like it was keeping him afloat. "Good night, huh?" he said, glancing at me. I didn't answer. The splinter in my chest was now a full-blown wound, and I didn't trust myself to speak without screaming. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a heart that felt like it had been wrung out. David was already gone. His side of the bed cold, a post-it note on the fridge saying he had an early meeting. No apology, no mention of last night's disaster. I stood in our kitchen, staring at the note, the silence of our Capitol Hill apartment pressing in. The joy of my birthday was ashes now, replaced by a gnawing question. What was David hiding? I tried to distract myself with work, tweaking a logo for a client, but my mind kept replaying the dinner, his tense shoulders, that fleeting look at Jessica, the way he'd dodged my question about her. I opened my laptop and, against my better judgment, pulled up her Instagram again. Her latest post was from last night, her and her date at La Bella Vita, captioned, "Serendipity in the city." Serendipity? My jaw clenched. That word felt like a taunt, like she knew something I didn't. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted Tara, "Can you meet? Need to vent." She replied instantly, "Coffee at Anchorhead, 1 p.m. Spill it." Tara was my rock, the friend who'd seen me through bad breakups and worse deadlines. If anyone could help me sort through this mess, it was her. At the coffee shop, I spilled everything over lattes, the phone secrecy, David's distance, Jessica's sudden appearance. Tara listened, her brow furrowing deeper with every word. When I finished, she leaned back, stirring her coffee slowly. "Okay, Lauren, I'm gonna be real with you," she said. "That's not a coincidence. Nobody just shows up at a place like La Bella Vita without a reservation. And David's reaction? Shady as hell." I nodded, my throat tight. But why wouldn't he tell me if they're talking or something? Why lie? Tara shrugged, her eyes softening. "Maybe he's not cheating, but he's definitely not being straight with you. You need to confront him. Like, yesterday." I knew she was right, but the thought of that conversation made my stomach churn. What if he admitted something I wasn't ready to hear? That evening, David came home late again, smelling faintly of the IPA he drank when he was stressed. He dropped his bag by the door and gave me a tired smile. "Hey, babe. Long day." I was on the couch, laptop closed, arms crossed. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He froze, just for a second, then nodded and sat across from me. his hands clasped like he was bracing for a verdict. "Last night," I started. "When Jessica showed up, you didn't seem surprised. You said it was a coincidence, but I don't buy it. Have you been talking to her?" His eyes widened, and he shook his head a little too quickly. "No, Lauren. I swear, I had no idea she'd be there." But his voice cracked, and he looked at the floor. "Not me." I pressed harder. "Then why did you look at her like that? Like you missed her or something?" My voice broke on the last word, and I hated how vulnerable it sounded. David rubbed his face, exhaling sharply. "You're blowing this out of proportion. She's just someone I used to know. I was caught off guard, that's all." But his words felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced them in his head. I leaned forward, my pulse racing. "David, don't lie to me. I saw your face. I know you. What's going on?" He stood up, pacing now, his hands in his hair. "Nothing's going on. God, Lauren, why do you always do this? You take one thing and spiral." His tone was sharp, defensive, and it hit me like a slap. "Always do this?" I shot back, standing too. "You've been distant for weeks. Your phone's practically glued to your hand, and now your ex shows up at my birthday dinner? You think I'm stupid?" He stopped pacing, his shoulders slumping. For a moment, I thought he'd crack, tell me the truth, whatever it was. But then he said, "I'm not doing this right now," and grabbed his jacket. "I need air." Before I could stop him, he was out the door, leaving me alone with my anger and a sinking dread. I didn't sleep that night. By 2 a.m., I was back on my laptop, digging deeper. I checked David's Instagram, something I rarely did because he barely posted, but his following list had grown. And there she was, Jessica's account, added recently. My heart pounded. I clicked through to her profile again, scrolling older posts. One from 2 weeks ago caught my eye, a photo of a gallery opening. Jessica in a sleek blazer, smiling with a group. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable, was David. Same gray hoodie, same slouch. He wasn't tagged, but he was there. My hands shook as I screenshot it. He'd told me he was at a work event that night. A lie, plain and simple. I wanted to call him, scream, demand answers, but he wasn't home, and I didn't even know where he'd gone. Instead, I texted Tara the screenshot with a single word: help. The next day, Tara came over, her face grim as she studied the photo. "This is bad, Lauren," she said. "He's not just running into her. He's involved, somehow." She hesitated, then added, "You need to check his phone. I know it's not ideal, but you deserve the truth." I hated the idea. Snooping felt like crossing a line, but the weight of his lies was crushing me. I nodded, resolve hardening. That night, David came home, acting like our fight never happened. He was all smiles, even kissed my forehead, but I wasn't buying it. When he went to shower, his phone was on the counter, unlocked. A rare slip. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I opened his messages, scrolling fast. There it was, a thread with Jessica, dated 2 days ago. La Bella Vita, 8 p.m. She'd written, "Don't be late." His reply, "I'll try. This is risky." My vision blurred with tears. He'd known. He'd planned it. I dropped the phone like it burned me, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The bathroom door opened, and David stepped out, towel around his waist, his face paling when he saw me. "Lauren," he said, voice low. I looked at him, my husband, the man I'd trusted, and all I could say was, "You lied." "You lied," I hissed, my voice trembling with fury, slicing through the humid air still clinging to David from the shower. He stood frozen, towel knotted at his waist, his eyes wide with a mix of panic and defeat. The apartment felt like a pressure cooker, every word a spark threatening to ignite us both. I thrust his phone toward him, the screen blazing with his texts to Jessica. You knew she'd be at La Bella Vita. You orchestrated it. What the hell is wrong with you? David? He took a shaky step forward, hands raised like he could tame the storm I'd become. Lauren, please, it's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like, I shouted, my voice cracking as it echoed off the walls. You lied about that gallery opening, saying it was a work thing. You're following her on Instagram, sneaking texts about my birthday dinner. Don't you dare call me crazy now. Tears stung my eyes, hot and relentless, but I refused to let them fall. I was done being the fool. David collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands, like the weight of his secrets was crushing him. Fine, he muttered, voice barely above a whisper. I'll tell you everything, but it's gonna hurt. My heart pounded, a sick dread pooling in my stomach, but I stood tall, arms crossed, daring him to break me further. He looked up, his eyes hollow. Jessica contacted me a month ago. She's back in Seattle, said she wanted closure. I didn't tell you because I knew it'd eat you alive. Eat me alive? My laugh was sharp, jagged, cutting through the air. You mean catch you flirting with your ex behind my back? Yeah, that'd do it. Keep talking. My words were venom, but inside I was unraveling, thread by thread. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, avoiding my gaze. I met her once, at her gallery event. It wasn't a date. Lauren, I swear. She invited me to see her work, said it'd be professional. I went because I thought I could close that chapter for good. He paused, swallowing hard, but then she started texting. Said she missed our talks. Missed what we had. I didn't know how to cut her off without being cruel. I stared at him, my pulse roaring in my ears. So, you just kept her in your life? Lied to me? Let her invade my birthday? My voice broke, raw with betrayal. Did you tell her where we'd be? David, did you want her there? He flinched, his silence louder than any confession. She asked about your birthday plans, he said finally, voice low. I told her La Bella Vita. I didn't think she'd show up. When she texted me the time and place, I panicked. I didn't know how to stop it without blowing everything up. Blowing everything up? I stepped closer, my hands shaking with rage. You could have warned me. You could have said, my ex is sniffing around, let's deal with it. Instead, you let her strut into my night. David, why? Tears spilled now, burning my cheeks, and I didn't care. Do you still love her? Is that it? His head snapped up, eyes blazing. No, Lauren, I love you. I chose you. But his voice cracked, and the words felt fragile, like they could shatter under the weight of his lies. I swiped at my tears, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Then why keep her close? Why look at her like she's still your world? He stood, closing the gap between us, but I recoiled, the air between us toxic. I don't know, he admitted, voice raw. Seeing her again, it dragged up old feelings. Not love, not like you think, just nostalgia. I got lost in it, and I messed up. I'm so sorry. His apology was a plea, but it couldn't stitch the gaping wound in my heart. The texts, the secrecy, they screamed louder than his words. My phone buzzed on the counter, shattering the moment. It was Tara, texting, "You good? Just saw something messed up." She'd sent a description of Jessica's Instagram story from last night, one I'd missed because it vanished after 24 hours. Tara's words painted it vividly. Jessica, smirking at La Bella Vita, her red hair glowing under the restaurant's soft lights, holding a wine glass, with a caption that read, "When you see the one who slipped through your fingers." My blood turned to ice. I shoved the phone at David, my hand trembling. "Explain this," I said, my voice a low growl. He read Tara's message, his face draining of color. She's playing games," he stammered, But his voice shook, unconvincing. "She's always been theatrical. You know that. This is just her stirring drama." But his eyes betrayed him, flickering with doubt. "Stirring drama?" I spat. "She wrote that for me to see. David." "She's taunting me, and you handed her the script." My mind spiraled, rage and hurt colliding. This wasn't just David's betrayal anymore. Jessica was waging war, and I was her battlefield. Why? To reclaim him? To break us? Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and fired off an Instagram DM to Jessica. "Why were you at La Bella Vita? What's your game with my husband?" My thumb slammed send, my heart pounding like a war drum. No retreat now. Her reply came fast, a single line that stopped my breath. "Ask David about the email. Then, let's chat." My vision narrowed, the word email a blade twisting in my gut. I turned to David, his face now a mask of dread. "What email?" I demanded, my voice cold as steel. He opened his mouth, then shut it, like a fish gasping for air. "She sent me something last week," he mumbled. "I didn't reply. I swear." I didn't buy it. I snatched his phone again, ignoring his weak protest, and tore through his email app. There it was, from Jessica. Subject, "For old time's sake." The message was short, her words dripping with intent. "You look happy, but I can't stop thinking about us." Coffee? No strings. Attached was a photo. David and Jessica on a beach, years ago, his arm slung around her, both of them laughing like the world was theirs. My stomach lurched, bile rising. "You kept this?" I whispered, my voice breaking as I held up the phone. "You didn't delete it? Didn't tell her to leave you alone?" He reached for me, but I jerked back, the photo searing into my brain. "Lauren, I didn't know what to do," he said, voice desperate. "I didn't want to poke the bear. I thought she'd back off if I ignored her." "Ignored her?" I roared, my voice shattering the quiet. "She's in our marriage now! David, you invited her in!" I hurled the phone onto the couch, my whole body trembling. I felt like I was sinking, each lie a weight dragging me under. Jessica wasn't just an ex. She was a shadow David had never banished, and I was paying the price. I collapsed into a chair, my face in my hands, tears soaking my palms. "Get out," I said, voice barely audible. "I can't look at you." David's breath hitched, his face crumpling, but he didn't fight me. He grabbed a jacket, his movements slow, like he was hoping I'd stop him. I didn't. The door clicked shut, and the silence was deafening. Alone. I stared at my phone. Jessica's message a taunt I couldn't shake. Then, let's chat. She wanted me to crack, and I'd played right into her hands. But this wasn't her victory yet. If she thought she could dismantle my life, she was about to face a woman with nothing left to lose. The silence after David left was suffocating, like the apartment itself was holding its breath. I sat there staring at my phone, Jessica's message, then let's chat, burning into me like a brand. Part of me wanted to fire back, to demand answers, to tear into her for thinking she could toy with my life. But another part, the part that was bone-tired and heartbroken, knew I needed to stop playing her game. This wasn't about Jessica anymore. It was about me, David, and the marriage I'd thought was unbreakable. I didn't sleep. By dawn, I was on my third coffee, pacing the living room, my mind a battlefield of rage and grief. I called Tara, my voice hoarse from crying. "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "He lied. Tara, he let her in, and she's loving this." Tara didn't sugarcoat it. "Lauren, you need to decide what you want, not what David deserves, not what Jessica's plotting. What do you need to feel whole again?" Her words hit hard, forcing me to face the question I'd been dodging. Could I trust David again? I spent the morning journaling, something I hadn't done since my 20s. I wrote about the good times, David surprising me with a picnic at Gasworks Park, the way he'd laugh at my terrible puns, how he'd held me when my dad got sick. But I also wrote about the cracks, his emotional distance, his need to fix problems alone, the way he'd dismissed my fears as overreacting. The truth was, I'd ignored those cracks, hoping love would patch them. Now, they were canyons. By noon, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Jessica. She wanted my attention, my anger, and I refused to give it. Instead, I texted David, "Come home. We're finishing this." He replied within minutes, "On my way." My stomach knotted, but I felt a strange calm. This was my line in the sand. When David walked in, he looked wrecked, eyes red, hair a mess, like he hadn't slept either. He stood by the door, hands in his pockets, waiting for me to speak. I didn't waste time. "I saw the email," I said, my voice steady. "I saw her texts, her Instagram games, but this isn't about Jessica. It's about you. You broke my trust. David, you chose to hide her instead of choosing us." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I know," he said, voice low. "I screwed up, Lauren. I thought I could handle it without hurting you, but I made it worse. I'm so sorry." His eyes were wet, and for the first time, I believed he meant it, but sorry wasn't enough. "I need more than apologies," I said, crossing my arms. "I need to know why you couldn't shut her down, why you let her linger, and I need the truth. David, or we're done." My words were a blade, and I saw them cut. He sank onto the couch, rubbing his face. "I was stupid," he started. "When she reached out, it felt like a chance to prove I'd moved on. Like, if I could see her and feel nothing, it'd mean I was over that part of my life, but I wasn't ready for how it'd feel. She knew exactly how to pull me in. Memories, flattery, all of it. I didn't want her back, but I didn't want to be the bad guy either. So I let it drag on, and I lied to you. That's on me." His honesty stung, but it was what I'd asked for. I sat across from him, my hands clasped to keep them from shaking. "Do you want this marriage?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because I can't stay if you're not all in." He looked at me, his eyes fierce. "I want you, Lauren. I want us. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, transparency, anything. I know I don't deserve you right now, but I'm begging for a chance to fix this." His voice cracked, and I felt my own resolve waver. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing, and mine was in pieces. We talked for hours, raw and unfiltered. I laid out my hurt, my anger, the humiliation of Jessica's presence at my birthday. He listened, didn't deflect, didn't make excuses. He showed me his phone, deleted Jessica's contact, blocked her on everything, and forwarded me the email he sent her. "This ends now. I'm married, and I love my wife. Don't contact me again." It was a start, but I wasn't naive. Actions would matter more than gestures. I told him I needed time. "I'm not leaving," I said, "but I'm not okay yet. We're going to therapy, and you're going to be an open book. If I feel like you're hiding anything, I'm gone." He nodded, relief and fear mixing in his eyes. "I'll do it," he said. "I swear." The next day, I met Tara at our usual coffee spot. She hugged me tight, her eyes searching mine. "You look stronger," she said. I managed a small smile. "I'm trying. I'm not forgiving him yet, but I'm giving us a shot. Not for him, for me." She squeezed my hand. "That's my girl. And Jessica?" I shook my head. She's irrelevant. If she wants to play games, she can find another stage. Weeks later, therapy started. It was brutal, digging into our patterns, my insecurities, his avoidance, but it was honest, and slowly. I felt us rebuilding. David was different, present, open, even vulnerable. He didn't push me to get over it, and that made me want to try harder. Jessica never reached out again, and I stopped checking her Instagram. She'd wanted to break me, but I was still standing. I don't know if we'll make it forever. Trust is a slow build, and some scars don't fade. But I'm proud of myself for fighting, not for David, but for the life I deserve. I'm not the woman who sat silently at that birthday dinner anymore. I'm Lauren, and I'm worth more than anyone's lies. Thanks for sticking with my story. You guys, it's been a wild ride, and sharing it feels like letting go of a weight. If this hit home or made you feel something, drop a like, comment your thoughts, or share it with someone who gets it. Your support means the world.